Um, Jurassic World, 2208 to 144 million years ago.
The weather became cooler and wetter in the Jurassic period 208 million years ago, and the climate was very humid. Vegetation was much lusher and greener than in the earlier Triassic period. There were huge forests of conifers, such as yews, cypress and monkey puzzle trees, together with cycads and giant ferns. Smaller ferns, the dinosaur world's equivalent to grass, covered the ground.
Here you can see Laurasia and Gondwana here. The bone was in the 1860s. The two U.S. dinosaur expert fought over a fossil when Othniel Charles Marsh, 1838 to 99, pointed out that Edward Drinker Cope, 1840 to 97, had placed the head of the fossil reptile on the end of its tail. Cope was furious. As a result, huge quantities of Jurassic dinosaur fossils were discovered in 1877 in the American Midwest. A bitter battle for precise bones broke out between two men. Here you can see man of means. The Othniel Marsh employed men to dig fossil beds for him and paid them generously for their finds. Edward, a keen writer, the Edward Cope wrote and published many articles on his dinosaur finds. The growing rivalry. Edward Cope and Othniel Marsh competed for the most of bones and the most expert fossil hunters. The two ambitious men spied on each other's activities, buying information about let us find, and even trying to bribe workers from the opposite camp into their services. Excavation at main sites continued at fever pitch for several years. During that time, thousands of fossils were carted away from the quarries and sent by the rail to Cope and Marsh. The bumper year, 3 major dinosaur fossil sites were discovered in 1877. First of these was found by Arthur Lakes and a school teacher in the Morrison, Colorado. In April 1877, Lakes sent bones to both Cope and Marsh, inquiring whether they were interested in the finds. Marsh replied chiefly, sending money to Lakes and requesting him not to mention the find to anyone else. Cope was already writing description of the bones when he received a message from the Lakes asking him to send them to Marsh, who named them Apatosaurus or deceptive reptile. Pendulum swings. Within months, Cope received samples from an even greater find. Another school teacher, O.W. Lucas, had discovered fossil bones near to Canyon City in the same rock formation as Morrison's, Colorado. Cope immediately employed Lucas to hire a team of helpers to collect the bones for him. By August 1877, it was clear to Cope that these were the remains of the larger plant eater, the largest yet found. He named it Camarasaurus. Marsh, having tried unsuccessfully to bribe Lucas to change the site, opened a rival quarry nearby. It was there that the first Diplodocus was found. The new dinosaur was named by Marsh in 1878. Best of all, the third find of the year was at Como Bluff, Wyoming. It was to prove that the best of the three sites. Marsh heard about that first and organized a team to excavate a huge fossil-rich beds. They dug up many fine skeletons during the several new species such as Stegosaurus and Allosaurus. Work at the site stopped in 1889. 8 years later, the team from American Museum of Natural History, headed by Henry Fairfield Osborn, 1857 to 1935, returned to Como Bluff and made many more finds at Bone Cabin Quarry. Early, the Earl Douglas, 1862 to 1931, was employed by the Car- Car- Carnegie Museum in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to hunt for dinosaur bones. He was on the field trip to Utah uh, in 1908 when he found a Diplodocus leg bone striking out of the rock at the bottom of ravine. Douglas had stumbled upon one of the richest Jurassic fossil sites ever discovered. He was to become known as Carnegie Quarry. Here, the spine and leg bone of Diplodocus were found buried in the Jurassic rocks in Utah.
This reconstruction of Earl Douglas's trip to Utah begins with his arrival at the dig site in 1908. Douglas and his team blasted the rock surface with dynamite to expose fossilized bones buried deep in the rock and painted a grid over the area they planned to excavate. Among the bones exposed were the spine and leg bone of a Diplodocus. Large sections of rock embedded with fossils were levered away from the mountainside and transported to the Carnegie Museum, where they were unpacked and prepared for exhibiting. This skull of Diplodocus carnegie was named after the museum owner, Andrew Carnegie, who financed the trip.
Douglas and Carnegie. The Andrew Carnegie, 1835 to 1990, was born in Scotland, United Kingdom, as the son of the handloom weaver. Faced with the failing business, the Carnegie family immigrated to the United States while Andrew is still in the teenage. As a young man, Andrew Carnegie was hugely successful in Pittsburgh business world, and by the age of 33 he had made his fortune. He used the money to finance the art libraries and museums, including Carnegie Museum in Pittsburgh. DP, fascinated by newspaper reports of spectacular dinosaur finds in American Midwest, Carnegie decided to find a skeleton for his museum. He sent a museum director, William Jacob Holland, 1848 to 1932, out to Wyoming with an expedition. Team was lucky, finding several incomplete skeletons of Diplodocus. Remains of 4 individuals were mounted in the museum as a single specimen, which was nicknamed DP, and it was the first sauropod lizard-footed dinosaur ever to be exhibited, and at 26 meters or 85 feet, one of the longest. Skeleton was much admired, and Carnegie hired a team of Italian plasterers to make the replicas, which he donated to several museums around the world. Carnegie Quarry. Earl Douglas returns to Carnegie Quarry in 1909 to excavate his earlier find. 8 exposed backbones returned out to be the part of the virtually incomplete Apatosaurus skeleton, 30 meters, 98 feet long, which Holland named Apatosaurus Lucy in honor of the Carnegie's wife, Lucy. Over the next 13 years, Douglas sent more than 305 tons, 335 imperial tons of fossils to Carnegie Museum, including more Diplodocus and Apatosaurus fossils, as well as Camarasaurus, Stegosaurus, and Allosaurus bones. Andrew Carnegie died in 1990, and there was not enough money for the museum to continue excavation after his death. Holland retired as a director. Uh, uh, Holland retired as a director of museum in 1922, and the quarry was closed. Dinosaur National Monument. In 1915, President Woodrow Wilson had Carnegie Quarry made the protected area to be known as a national monument. 8 years later, Douglas suggested that the quarry should be made a permanent exhibit, and which exposed bones could be seen in the positions that in which they were originally found. Work on his visionary idea began in 1933, but was interrupted by World War II, 1939 to 45. Construction of the present visitor center started in 1957, and excavation have since exposed some 200 bones in the cliff face. Dinosaur National Monument now attract more than 400,000 visitors every year. Giant lizard. An English museum curator, Robert Plot, 1640 to 97, made the drawing of a fossilized leg bone in 1677. At first, he thought the bone belongs to an ancient elephant, but after comparing it with the bones of the modern elephant, he decided it must be a giant human bone. The fossil has long since disappeared, but the drawing suggests it was part of the thigh bone of the uh, Megalosaurus, whose name means giant lizard. Here you can see fossilized thigh bone. This is a copy of Robert Plott's original sketch of Megalosaurus thigh bone. Megalosaurus fossils. In 1815, William Buckland, 1784 to 1856, an English clergyman and world first professor of geology, obtained some fossils from the Slate Quarry in Oxfordshire, England. Among them was a jawbone with a large central curved tooth, exposed on by French anatomist Georges Cuvier, 1769 to 1832. Buckland published his account of the find in 1824, then and named and the animal Megalosaurus. This was very first scientific description of a dinosaur. Important find, Georges Cuvier proposed that the some shapes of the bones reflect their functions. By comparing the shapes of the modern animals' bones with an ancient fossilized bones, he was able to make a deduction about the function of the fossilized bones. When he saw the Buckland's fossils, Cuvier identified them as belong to a large land-living, flesh-eating reptile. He considered them an important find. Cuvier was first person to prove that there had been animals in the past that no longer existed. Terrible reptiles. Richard Owen, 1804 to 1902, the British professor of comparative anatomy at London Royal College of Surgeons, took a keen interest in exciting new fossil finds. He sketched a reconstruction of Megalosaurus that looked like a giant bear with a long snout. On July 30, 1841, Owen invented the term Dinosauria, which means terrible reptiles, for the group of animals that included Buckland's Megalosaurus. Owen was the first person to suggest that dinosaurs may have had their features in common with the warm-blooded animals. A small fossilized skeleton was discovered in Bavaria, Germany in 1850s. The delicate bones were recovered from Jurassic limestone rocks at the place is called Solfhofen. The skeleton complete part from the end of its tail was passed to the German professor at the University of Munich, Johann and Wegner, 1797 to 1861, when he named the chicken-sized reptile uh, Com- Compsognathus in 1861. He did not realize that was in fact a dinosaur. Here the flesh eater tiny skeleton of a lizard was found in Compsognathus ribcage. Compsognathus. Thus, English anatomist Thomas Henry Huxley, 1825 to 95, and the U.S. dinosaur expert Edward Drinker Cope, 1840 to 97, realized that the Compsognathus was a tiny dinosaur related to huge monsters currently being unearthed in the United States and England. Important implications. By coincidence, another fossil find further increased in the importance of Compsognathus. In the same year, the delicate dinosaur was named. A very detailed fossil Archaeopteryx was found in the Solhofen quarry in Bavaria, Germany. Reptilian features of Archaeopteryx soon drew attention to the bird-like feathers of Compsognathus. Both Cope and Huxley were quick to see the implications for dinosaur posture and anatomy. A closer link between dinosaur and birds rather than between dinosaurs and mammals fitted with the fossil finds of Hadrosaurus and Laelaps in the United States. These suggested lighter build, greater agility, and more two-legged stance than a huge lumbering dinosaur envisioned by Richard Owen, 1804 to 1992, the British fossil expert who invented the term dinosaur. Bridging the gap, in 1868, Huxley wrote an article discussing the bird-like skeleton and probable upright posture of the tiny Compsognathus dinosaur, and in the United States, Marsh hailed Archaeopteryx as a fossil find that bridged the gap between reptiles and birds. Scientists today continue to discuss the similarities between skeletons of Compsognathus and Archaeopteryx and the possible descent birds from dinosaurs and their possible joint descent from the common ancestor. African fossil finds. German professor Eberhard Frass, 1862 to 1905, was visiting Dar es Salaam in Africa in 1907 when he heard of an exciting fossil find. The find was at the remote place called Tendaguru in what is now Tanzania. Having visited the site and seen the huge quantity of bones, Frass returned to Germany to raise funds for a big expedition. His popular talks on dinosaurs inspired the public, and money was soon forthcoming. Here you can see the bones everywhere. When he visited the Tendaguru site, Frass saw exposed bones lying on the ground wherever he looked. Further expeditions. Werner Jennens, 1878 to 1969, from the Berlin Museum in Germany, was chosen to lead the 1909 expedition to Tendaguru. He was accompanied by Edwin Henning from the University of Berlin and the original finder of the site, German geologist W.B. Settler. Eberhard Frass was unable to go with them as he had caught dysentery in his previous trip to Africa. The excavation team uncovered the huge quantity of scattered bone on the site, and the quiet African bush was soon disturbed by the activities of about 170 local workers and their families who built a village there. Inhospitable bush, domestic animals could not be used to transport provisions in the disease-ridden bush. So all supplies had to be carried from the nearest port in Lindy by porters, a trip that took 4 days. On their return trip, the porters carried the gigantic fossil slug on the poles. Each fossil carried up to 4 men. By 1911, 500 men were working on the site, the largest labor force ever to work on the dinosaur excavation. In the first 3 years, 5,400 trips were made to Lindy, and more than 180 tons, 200 tons of bones were removed. Back in Berlin, many of the fossils were in bad condition and lay scattered over a wide area, so little identification work could be done in the field. A huge amount of preparation had to be carried out back in the Berlin. One single shoulder blade found in 80 pieces took 160 hours to clean and repair. Eventually, the team was able to identify the many species of dinosaurs, including Elephosaurus, Dichrysaurus, and Kentrosaurus. Most impressive find was an almost complete skeleton of Brachiosaurus. It was 12 meters 39 feet tall and 23 meters 75 feet long. Brachiosaurus took 27 years to assemble for display and was finally unveiled in the Humboldt Museum, Berlin in 1937. British expedition 1924 to 29, spurred on by the remains found by the Germans. The British Museum funded expedition led by the Canadian William Edmund Cutler, 1878 and to 1925. Kenya-born Louis Leakey, 1927 to 1927 to 1923 to 17, was later famed for his early man discoveries. Joined Cutler at Tendaguru in 1924. The expedition collected about 600 bones, but no complete skeletons. Cutler died in Blackwater fever in 1925. Work continued until money ran out in 1929. By then, an estimated total of 9,375 24-hour days had been worked on Tendaguru site. Chinese fossil finds. In the late 1930s, Chinese geologist Bian Meinian reported the first discovery of dinosaur remains in Lufeng in Yunnan province, southwestern China. Professor Yang Zhuang Qin, 1897 to 1979, from Beijing, opened up several big quarries containing a new Saurasian lizard-hip dinosaurs. Among these was a medium-sized dinosaur, which he named Lufengosaurus in 1941. Here the dinosaur fossil is spectral. Local villagers watch scientists studying dinosaur fossils in Sichuan province, north of Yunnan. Dragon bones. First scientific fossil collecting expeditions took place in China in early 1900, but dragon bones were found in Chinese medicine shops long before that. Johann Gunnar and Anderson, 1874 to 1960, Swedish geologists and fossil enthusiasts who traveled in China between 1914 and 1924, recognized that the dragon bones belongs to extinct animals. Together, Australian scientist Otto Jansky and Chinese geologist H.C. Tan, he found some of the sources of these bones. Sichuan province. Fossil-rich beds of Sichuan province, south-central China, have produced most of the continuous record of dinosaurs from Jurassic period, 208 to 144 million years ago. in the world. Mamenchisaurus was excavated by Yang Chuang Qing 1897 to 1979 in 1952. Tuachiangosaurus, a new type of stegosaur, four-legged plant eater with plates or spines running down the neck, back, and tail, was found in Ujaba quarry and named by Don Choming, China's leading modern fossil scientist. Both Mamenchisaurus and Tuachioganosaurus are from Jurassic beds. Many fossils dating from middle of the Jurassic period have been found in Dashanpu at the Dashanpu quarry site. Don Shiming was asked to excavate this quarry in 1979 after construction team had struck dinosaur bones. The site has since produced more than 100 dinosaur skeletons, including more than 20 specimens of Shuanosaurus. British-Chinese expedition. Chinese dinosaurs became known worldwide after 1982 British-Chinese expedition. Team from British National History Museum, including dinosaur expert Angela Milner and Alan Charik, visited Jurassic beds in Sichuan. In 6 weeks, the team collected 220 lots of bones, primarily of sauropods, lizard-footed dinosaurs, exchanging many ideas on the field techniques during that time. In 1987, Don Chiming and Angela Milner worked on the book Dinosaurs from China, the first popular book in Chinese dinosaurs. Jurassic period to 208 to 144 million years ago marked the middle of the Mesozoic era. By this time, the supercontinent Pangaea was definitely breaking up, rifting in the continental crust gradually produced the Atlantic Ocean. Africa began to split from the South America, and India started to drift towards Asia. Climates were now warm worldwide. The moist winds from the invading seas both drained to the inland deserts. Plants spread into once barren lands, providing food for abundant and widespread dinosaurs, including largest of the all land animals. Above them flew first small birds, which themselves may have evolved from small dinosaurs. The sea was shared by new large swimming reptiles, animals that have waterproof skin and lay eggs. The bony fish built on modern lands. When the Jurassic period began, the old mountain had been worn away, but the Pangaea started to splitting up. New mountains were formed. Flood of Java, molten rock oozed from the geological rift that ran all the way from southern Africa through Antarctica into Tasmania. Episodes of mountain building racked western North America, and volcanoes pushed up in the Andes. During the Jurassic period, Tibet joined Eurasia, and as the period drew on the end, African brushed against southern Europe, losing chunk of crust that form pieces of land as far as apart from Arabia and Spain. Lands were gradually greener and more lush than they had been Triassic times, and vegetation types were more uniform worldwide. Tall forest conifers included relatives of today's giant sequoias, huge conifers, California trees, pines, and the Chile pine, monkey puzzle. Other plentiful trees included gingos, trees with fan-shaped leaves, and cycads, palm-like tropical plants. The main small trees and shrubby plants. In conifer forest, tall tree ferns often made up for underlying layer of vegetation. Most of the common low-growing plants were ferns and horsetails, non-flowering bush-like plants. These grew abundantly and may have been important as a food source for sauropods, lizard-footed dinosaurs. No flowering plants had appeared yet. Life on land. At the beginning of the Jurassic period, main plants eating vertebrates, animals with the backbone, were prosauropods, early lizard-footed dinosaurs, and ornithischians, bird-like bird-hip dinosaurs, and small mammal-like reptiles. But by late Jurassic times, huge sauropods predominated. Uh, these browsed on both high and low level vegetations. Sauropods relied mainly on gastroliths, swallowed stones, rather than teeth to grind their food. Stegosaurus, four-legged dinosaurs with two tall rows of plates or spines running down the neck, back, and tail. The next most abundant plant-eating dinosaurs had the toothless beak and weak cheek teeth. There were also ornithopods, bird-footed dinosaurs, and early ankylosaurs, group of armored dinosaurs. Large theropods, beast-footed dinosaurs, killed and ate plant eaters, while small theropods chased small game or many have scavenge. Life in the air, the skin-winged pterosaurus, flying reptiles, dominated their life in the air. Ramphoricoid pterosaurus had a long tail that served as a stabilizer and rudder. Pterodactyloid pterosaurus had no tail. Many of these creatures had spiky teeth, adapted for spearing fish as they swallowed low over the water. Early birds also appeared. The best known Archaeopteryx had bones, teeth, and claws that resembled the small theropods, but it also had feathers, winged, and tailed, and was capable of flight. Life in water. By the Jurassic period, both nothosaurs, slender sea reptiles with a thrusting tail for swimming and sharp interlocking teeth, and placodonts, sturdy sea reptiles that fed by shoveling shellfish with their front teeth, had died out. But ichthyosaurus, streamlined dolphin-like reptiles with fins, flippers, and long, narrow jaws were persistent. They shared the shallow areas with a group of marine crocodiles, marine crocodiles, alligators, and related extinct reptiles whose limbs had also evolved onto flippers, and with teleos, fish with bone skeleton and suction feeding mechanism. Other sea creatures included barrel-bodied plesiosaurs, giant sea reptiles with a long neck and large paddle-like limbs, uh, which traveled through the water like sea lions, and plesiosaurs, which were short-necked plesiosaurs with a large head and strong sharp teeth. But late Jurassic times, ichthyosaurs and marine crocodilians were in decline.